Good day, Unit 1, Introduction to Biochemistry. For Unit 1, at the end of the lecture, you should be able to explain the characteristics of living matter, describe the relationship between biochemistry and the living state, differentiate biomolecules, but actually we will just know or be familiar with the biomolecules that we will be learning from chapters, units uh, 3 and beyond. So we will not look into the structure and function in the meantime, although you will be answering structure and function for your activities. Then we will look into metabolic reactions, catabolic and anabolic reactions, recognize chemical reactions of biomolecules. We will only tackle three: condensation, hydrolysis, and esterification. And finally, familiarize also yourself with self-regulation of cell reactions. So we start with characteristics of living matter. You've already uh, did the activity for this one. It's simply looking at what makes us living or what makes living matter a living matter. So you've already learned this from elementary to high school until your senior high school. So a living matters are made up of cells, can reproduce based on a genetic code, grow and develop, obtain and use materials and energy, respond to the environment, and maintain a stable internal environment and change over time. So only those eight is can make you already identify what a living matter is. So for your activity 1.1.1, you are supposed to answer these things. These are very simple, only list down living matter, an example of living matter, non-living matter, and its characteristics. And here, this is already answered in your book. What are the characteristics of living matter? For activity 1.1.2, you are given a scenario by Debbie Richards, and you will use some critical thinking um, skill here. So, as you observe the masses, what evidence would make you think these things that you are given are living things? And number two, what are the list of questions that you would ask yourself? Kindly insert that yourself as you begin your investigation. So, next we look at the biochemistry and the living state. Uh, This part will only tell you that the common denominator of all living things are your biomolecules. And we start with elements like hydrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, etc. And of course, carbon. And these are your organic chemistry part. So from these elements, it makes up your biomolecules. You already have your carbohydrates, lipids, nucleic acids, and proteins that have special functions in your body. And going to the bigger version until the whole of a living state already. That's how your biochemistry and the living state is related. So for that part, for 1.2.1, madali lang din yung exercise natin dito, looking into which part of a eukaryotic cell is composed of proteins, carbohydrate, nucleic acids, and lipids. There could be several answers here, but I will only ask you to put one part of the eukaryotic cell that is composed of protein, carbohydrate, nucleic acids, and lipids. And also for number two, what are the functions of these biomolecules in each part of the cell that you have cited? You only put one function for every biomolecule, like one function of protein, one function of carbohydrates, etc. And then 1.2.1 is asking you to create a concept map on the relationship between biochemistry and the living matter. So I suppose you already know what and how to do a concept map. So for 1.3 is only to show you what are the biomolecules that we will be tackling for the semester. We have four biomolecules and we call it biomolecules. It's chunk of small molecules in our body making uh doing us a function. So it's sometimes called the giant molecule and the macromolecule and also biomolecules. That's what we really use. We have lipids, nucleic acids, carbohydrates, and proteins. So for your activity there is simply for you to complete the table. So you have the four biomolecules, write the chemical composition in formulas, chemical formulas. An example, just put one example each and function in living things. Okay na yung one example or function in the living things. Next is for your energy transformation. This is actually the bulk of your chapter 9, the integrated metabolic pathway. It's talking about the metabolism or the sum total of all the chemical reactions involved in your cell, involved in maintaining the dynamic state of the cell. So we have two types of metabolism. We have cat or catabolism. Cut, it's breaking down the molecules to provide the energy needed by the cells, and anabolism, to synthesize or put together the molecules or compounds needed by the cells, and both simple and complex. So I'm a visual person. Hopefully, meron din sa inyo. So mas tumatatak sa akin yung mga pictures. So you see here for catabolism, you have a large molecule and it will be broken down to smaller molecules. And when these large molecules are broken down to smaller molecules, energy is released. So that's how we get our energy. Anabolism, on the other hand, is the other way around. You have smaller units and you will be needing energy to make these small units bigger. So that's simply for your energy transformation. In your textbook, you will see that there's a link given by Mom Jen there. And this is the whole of that link showing you all the metabolic pathways that happens in our body. So there's a lot of that. You will see here the Krebs cycle. You will see here carbohydrate metabolism, nucleic acid metabolism, looking into purines. You have also your tetrapyral metabolism here. So this one part here of the carbohydrate metabolism looks like this. So yan yon. These are actually the pathways that you will be learning in chapter 9. So I hope I had also part where you can see each compound here. Those are your biomolecules. So you will be appreciating this part of biochemistry, especially if you will go to medicine. This is how you understand how our body works. So for our activity 1.4, it's giving you simply all the stages of metabolic reactions. And then you will just put here what type of metabolic process is it? Is it catabolic or anabolic? So again, you don't have to copy or um, use old notes for this. The process of researching and knowing what these metabolic reactions are and if it is catabolic or anabolic will be very important. The learning process is important. Mas maaalala ninyo what it is. So nasa sa inyo yan. Next, we have chemical reactions. There are lots of chemical reactions that happens in our body, but we will only tackle 3. We have condensation, hydrolysis, and esterification. Because you told me that you don't have organic chemistry for RT, you need to study this double time, twice, if you don't really understand what it is. Because the background of biochemistry is largely organic chemistry. So for condensation reaction, In simple terms, it's a small molecule plus a small molecule will make up a big molecule. And when they make up that big molecule, water or a small molecule will be released. So for example, in this figure, you have an amino acid plus an amino acid will give you a dipeptide. And then during that process, the condensation reaction, water is released. So the next one is hydrolysis. It's the other way around. Um, it's you have a big molecule with the addition of water, it will split up to two small molecules. So for example, in this figure, you have a dipeptide. With water, you have it split into two amino acids. For your esterification, I call it manang ester. For manang ester, you have carboxylic acid. Usually, carboxylic acids are those with COOH plus alcohol. Those molecules with OH. When you add those two, they will form a OR, an OR. OR, it's an ester. So as simple as like that, if I don't know if this works, but this is COOH plus OH will give you an OR, an ester. So it's a esterification reaction, the reaction between carboxylic acid with alcohol or phenol to produce an ester. Okay. For your activity pair, we have only three examples, and you will just tell whether the example is a condensation, hydrolysis, or esterification reaction. Again and again, you need to do this on your own so that you will understand the process of determining the reactions. And lastly is self-regulation of cell reactions. Ang bida natin dito is the enzyme. Our enzymes speed up chemical reactions that takes place in cells. And without your enzymes, you would actually die because some chemicals that make life possible are too slow or have activation energies that are too big to make them practical for living tissue. So energy is required to begin a chemical reaction, and these chemical reactions are made possible by a catalyst. So if this is originally the activation energy that you will need, what the enzyme do is it lowers down that activation energy so it can easily reach it and proceed with the reaction. So, enzymes, you don't see it dun sa 4 biomolecules natin that you will be learning, but you will have a separate unit for enzymes because enzymes are proteins, actually, that act as biological catalysts. And cells can control these enzyme activity ways. You will see that in your activity. It's called enzyme inhibition. And because sometimes we want to stop also the process. So it's an on and off critical phases of the life of cell and important siya sa enzymes natin. This is the activity for your self-regulation. Factors, you will see here the factors that affect the rate of enzyme activity. We have enzyme concentration, substrate concentration, temperature, and pH. Your figures are already there. You will just have to tell me that the relationship between the enzyme and the concentration, for example, substrate and the concentration, temperature and enzyme, and pH. So here in activity 1.6.2, this is where I told you kanina, you have different types of enzyme inhibition processes, and you have to differentiate competitive from non-competitive and irreversible enzyme inhibitors. Although you can advance read and you can go to the chapter where your enzymes are, nandun actually yung answer for this one. So in summary, we talked about the characteristics of living matter. We have actually 8 there. And then you have the relationship of biochemistry and the living state. We start with elements and then biomolecules and then the living state itself. We look into the biomolecules that we have in our body, the 4, lipids, carbohydrates, nucleic acids, and proteins. We look into energy transformations. You have your catabolism and anabolism. Chemical reactions, we only tackled three. You have your condensation, hydrolysis, and esterification. And for your self-regulation of cell reactions, we talked about enzymes. So that's it for unit one. If you do have questions, you can type in here sa uploaded video, or you can ask through Messenger, or you can also put it in our Google Classroom. Thank you. I can somehow stop this there.